Look closely at the side of this brick building in London, and you'll find an image you've probably seen 1,000 times before. Hokusai's Great Wave is woven into modern street culture, appearing on murals, t-shirts, and digital screens around the world. You can find that same wave inside elite institutions like the British Museum, where it is treated with absolute reverence, preserved behind glass as one of the most significant works of the 19th century. These prints began as commercial products, mass-produced by the thousands, and sold to the citizens of Edo for roughly the price of a double helping of noodles. Japan was locked under strict isolationist laws when Hokusai designed this, cut off from nearly all foreign contact. Yet this cheap commercial woodblock print broke through those heavily guarded borders to become the most recognizable image in Japanese history. To see how it achieved that, we have to look at how it was built. Katsushika Hokusai was 70 years old when he designed this work using the ukiyo-e, or floating world, system. These prints are built in layers, always starting with the black ink line work of the key block. This diagram reveals Hokusai's foundational drawing. He used a sweeping S-curve to build the wave's body, which fractures into free-form wiggles to create menacing claws of water. That downward momentum creates a pocket of negative space, framing the calm peak of the mountain. Hokusai applied a technique borrowed from European art, deep space perspective. By dropping the viewpoint drastically low to the water, he stripped away the midground, forcing the viewer to look up at the massive wave, while Fuji appears tiny on the horizon. This line work was a deliberate geometric trap. Hokusai used precise framing to emphasize human fragility against the overwhelming, indifferent power of nature. This was the specific color palette required to bring Hokusai's design to life: a dark tan for the boats and 3 distinct shades of blue for the water. The linchpin of this entire series was a major technological disruption in the Japanese printing industry: the arrival of Prussian blue. Traditional Japanese indigo pigments were sensitive to light and faded quickly. Prussian blue, however, offered high saturation levels and a resistance to fading that allowed for deep, moody gradients that stayed vibrant for decades. This defines the irony of the work. The color that made this Japanese icon possible was a European invention, smuggled into the country by Dutch and Chinese merchants in defiance of isolationist laws. Looking past the massive wave, we find tiny human figures huddled inside pale yellow boats. These are oshiokuri, high-speed cargo skiffs rushing fish into Edo's booming markets. They are the engines of a proto-capitalist economy, racing to meet the demands of a growing city. In the distance, Mount Fuji represents the ultimate symbol of Edo identity. It was worshipped as a deity, a permanent anchor of stability for a society that was forbidden from leaving its shores. Hokusai chose a perspective from the open sea, looking back toward land, at a time when ocean travel was a capital offense. From this forbidden vantage point, the massive, clawing wave becomes a proxy for the outside world, a foreign force looming over Japan's sacred mountain. This makes the Great Wave a document of its era, a commercial product designed for a hungry market that simultaneously captured the deep-seated anxieties of 19th century Japan. In the 1850s, Japan's borders were forced open. Almost immediately, massive quantities of cheap woodblock prints flooded European markets. This triggered the craze of Japonisme. Western artists became obsessed with these prints, appearing pinned to the walls in the backgrounds of their portraits. In the summer of 1889, one of these artists, Vincent van Gogh, voluntarily admitted himself to a mental asylum in Saint-Rémy-de-Provence. Isolated in his cell, Van Gogh relied on his visual memory of Japanese prints to stay anchored. Hokusai's wave provided a crucial artistic lifeline while he struggled with his own psychological distress. You can see that influence clearly in The Starry Night. While Hokusai used flat, controlled woodblock ink, Van Gogh used thick, emotional impasto oil paint. Yet the structural connection is undeniable. The swirling, claw-like mass of Van Gogh's blue sky mirrors the exact thrust and energy of Hokusai's breaking wave. This energy rippled across disciplines. Composer Claude Debussy kept a copy of the wave, using its visual rhythm to inspire his oceanic composition, La Mer. The architect Frank Lloyd Wright translated Hokusai's principles of edited views into his approach to spatial architecture, using framing to curate how we see nature. Hokusai proved that when domestic tradition and smuggled technology collide, they can define the visual vocabulary of the modern world.